And thank you so much for joining. My name's Grant Davidson, so I'm the Managing Director and Head of Strategy at Davidson Branding. This morning I'll be talking about marketing strategies for a COVID world and beyond. I think this image captures or really sums up the journey we've been on over the past 6 months. We've been on an absolute roller coaster, ups and downs, unprecedented changes. And I think for many of us, the strategy has been to just hang on and pray. So I guess the objective this morning is to make sure we can give you as many strategies, tools and tactics to help, I guess, navigate these really tricky times. And I think this quote has never been more fitting. The future ain't what it used to be. Again, these are unprecedented times, and the pandemic has created a seismic shift in our lives. Business, it's affected our values, our attitudes, our beliefs, our behaviours. And in particular, from a marketing point of view, it's affected what we buy, how we buy it, and where we buy it. And I think the other quote that's really fitting is, what got us here won't get us there. So many of the strategies that we've used to date from a marketing point of view are no longer effective or relevant. We've spent the last 3 months extensively researching, looking at consumer behaviour shifts, trends, in order to develop what are the critical strategies to help in these different times. So specifically what I'll aim to cover this morning, I'd like to kick off with some consumer and cultural shifts. So what are the impacts in our purchasing beliefs and behaviour that we need to understand in order to market effectively? Impacts particularly on buying behaviour, which is really important. Then there's a fantastic deep study in understanding what consumers want to hear from brands during COVID-19, so we know what the most effective marketing messages are. Then I'll wrap up with 6 marketing strategies to help survive and thrive through COVID-19 and beyond. And then we'll wrap up with some 15 minutes of questions at the end. So let's get stuck into it. So I'll start with consumer and cultural shifts. So again, no news, but lockdown has created big changes in our beliefs and behaviours. There's Burke Street. So again, from a business point of view, it has imposed challenges in order to generate sales, attract market, and go about business in a normal perspective. So if we look at some stats in terms of the impact on consumers, so 2/3 of Australians have had their employment impacted by COVID-19. So working from home, 4.3 million people, working hours reduced, 3.3 million, business slowdown, increased work hours, stood down, no work. So big shifts and changes in our work from a day-to-day point of view. So consumer confidence, no surprise, fell off a cliff in April. The good news is it started to bounce back up, which was good in August. And following suit, business confidence hit a record low of 76.9 and again has bounced up 89.9. Now, why these two stats are quite important is they're kind of intertwined, I suppose, and they create a virtuous cycle or a vicious cycle. So when we're happily employed and we're secure in our jobs, we tend to spend. And when we spend money with businesses, and businesses prosper. And when businesses prosper, they look after their employees, they pay them more, they employ new employees, and then the cycle goes around. So obviously in situations like this, the reverse is true and we end up in a vicious cycle. However, with every economy, while some are struggling, there's always pockets of revenue and growth. We saw food delivery, furniture, online gambling, home improvements, and pet care being some of the big growth areas. It's also really important to acknowledge that in every economic downturn or recession, there have been hugely successful businesses that have grown from it. And there's 2 in particular where Uber started in the recession of 2008. And they're now valued at 47 billion. Pinterest, another company, started 2010, and they're now 8.6 billion. So there are plenty of opportunities to generate revenue and grow successful businesses, no matter what the economy. And some of the other upsides from an interpersonal point of view is we've seen big wins in terms of building family bonds, and lots of new behaviours have grown, and a lot of people talking about the silver lining out of this situation. So let's look specifically at COVID impacts on our buying behaviour. So more than half of Australian consumers discovered new shopping behaviours. So what this did is it broke our habits, and a third of the people interviewed across Australia explored different brands or bought different brands, purchased from different retailers, stores or different businesses, tried new shopping methods, and pushed towards private label or store brands, and also looked at new digital shopping methods. So that's 50% of Australians changed their shopping behaviour. And the good news is that a lot of this behaviour will continue post-COVID. Again, 86% said they will continue shopping different brands. 83% will look for different businesses and stores and explore these different methods that were established. It's also made us more mindful with our spending. So we're now looking for more ways to save money when shopping. Said 42% of Australians become more mindful of where we spend our money, spend more time planning, making lists, and we're also shifting to less expensive products. It's also caused us to rethink the products and services that we buy. So whilst there's been a decrease in premium items, luxury brands and jewellery, we've seen a big increase in health and wellbeing. I think has been one of the biggest winners. So vitamins, minerals, herb supplements. We're also home cleaning products, no surprise, but fresh fruit, vegetables and those sorts of things. And again, we're taking a lot of pride in homes, so lots of growth in home renovations and repairs. It's also influenced our purchasing drivers. So value for money being absolutely the top of the Australians interviewed in the New Reality report by KPMG. Value for money was cited as being the biggest driver of purchasing, ease of buying, and the third one there is about trust in brand. I'm going to talk a little bit more about trust because this has emerged as a really important brand foundation going forward. So the elements of trust from that report is about my personal safety, being part of the local community, having a social conscience, about your people and policy, approach to the environment, and that the brand's values match mine. So we're seeing a huge importance on trusting brands. No surprise that COVID has absolutely accelerated online purchasing behaviour. Now this is across all countries and all demographics, not just digital natives. And in Australia, in August, we saw the absolute record peak in online shopping. And no surprise, Victoria leading the charge with an absolute record online shopping in August. Something people always ask is, what is the most trending search? So according to Google, it's flavoured alcohol beverages, with espresso martini being the top query. Now, interesting enough, that's ahead of hand sanitisation, model making, travel, plants, baby, and candle making kits. So 68% of Australians cited the digital as the key source of discovering new brands and businesses. So digital is absolutely a critical channel going forward. And this came from proactively researching products and services, advertising online, and someone talking about it on social media. So through searching, through online advertising, and through social media, 68% of purchasing behaviour was driven by digital. So what we found is 4 consumer segments emerged through the pandemic. 35% those who save and stockpile, 27% who are cutting deep in terms of their spending, 26% stay calm, just carry on as much as business as usual, and a small percentage were actually hibernating. Now, what's been predicted is post-COVID, 5 consumer segments will appear. And the good news is the largest percentage being just getting back to normal. Most of us want to return to normal. Cautiously extravagant, staying frugal, only a small percent will keep cutting. And what's really interesting is where people will intend to spend their money after COVID. So obviously the cautiously extravagant, desperate to get back out into activity and leisure, holiday vacations, meals from restaurants, clothing, footwear, fresh chilled food, and so the stats go on. So I want to talk a little bit now about what consumers want to hear from brands during COVID-19. This is really important. So this is a deep research piece based on 12,000 interviews with consumers across 12 countries. So one of the key stats is that brands are perceived as being critical against winning the fight in the pandemic. So 62% of consumers believe that countries will not make it through without brands playing a critical role. And many believe that brands are more important than the local government. 65% said the brand's response to pandemic will influence their future purchasing decisions. So it's really important how businesses respond and market during this time. And as I mentioned before, the importance of trust just keeps emerging, that people will be turning to brands that they trust. So 60% of the people, the 12,000 people interviewed, said that this was really, really important. So what people wanted is to hear from companies who produce products that can help. That's 89%, which is a huge statistic when you're talking about market research. So a couple of examples. So Ford pivoted their business and developed ventilators and respirators. So they looked at their technology, their parts, their capabilities, and they put it into use to help combat the pandemic. One of our local businesses, past client of ours, Nobody Denim, they turned all of their sewing and their capabilities into creating medical products. And 4 Pillars, they turned the byproduct of their product into making hand sanitizers. And someone said they can't believe they put more gin on their hands than they did drink. And obviously when hotels were shut down, so rather than switching off the lights, locking the doors, the Hilton Marriott started to donate free hotel rooms to medical workers responding to the coronavirus crisis, which was a great initiative. And car rentals, when their business ground to a halt, what they did is they turned their capabilities, their resources, their vehicles and their staff into essential grocery deliveries. So what consumers wanted is to hear brands that educate. 85% said this. And we saw Nike's campaign, all about educating us to do the right thing. Play inside and play for the world was their campaign. They spent millions and millions of dollars promoting this. We saw McDonald's very clever campaign promoting social distancing. And Dove spent millions of dollars on a campaign all about being safe and effective hand washing and sanitisation. This is one of my favourite examples, and this is where principles outweigh profits. So quite often when we're all in the same boat, we're desperate to drive revenue and get through. But it was a very brave and principled move by Uber to basically say, and it makes their living from people travelling, to say, do not travel, do not use this, stay home, which I think was a fantastic philosophy. So 83% or 84% of consumers said that brands should bring people together. A fantastic example was Chipotle. So again, when their restaurants had to close down, they said, right, our role is to create community and bring people together. And this will create fantastic goodwill that will build loyalty post-COVID. So in April, they developed this enormous Zoom conference, and they had 3,000 fans and celebrities joining that event. So huge success. And again, Nespresso said, how do we build community? So every Friday, they did a masterclass on coffee, and they had thousands and thousands of participants. Okay, consumers want brands to communicate how you're helping. Again, huge numbers, 89%. So Virgin, again, when they were literally grounded because of the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than, again, shutting down, they said, right, we're going to pivot our business and help the world by delivering supplies, and we're going to use our passenger jets to deliver supplies around the world. And I follow Richard Branson on social media, and it was fantastic how it wasn't bashful or boasting. It was just keeping us informed about how they're doing their part to help, which again builds loyalty. Consumers want us to focus our messages on solutions. Again, huge numbers, 84% and 77%. Fantastic example where Snapchat began, they understood that one of the big impacts is mental health, mental well-being, and they discovered that there was lots of searching around the term anxiety. So what they did, anytime somebody would search the term or use the search term anxiety, what they would do is send a message saying, hey, we're here for you, and send notices on ways and resources where they can get help. So a great social cause. Okay, 83% of consumers want brands to show that you care. This was a fantastic campaign, again, by Dove, who are brilliant marketers. And this was not about selling products. This was about championing those amazing people on the front line and talking about courage is beautiful. So still the message is in line with their brand strategy about celebrating beauty. And this is about courage is beautiful. Really powerful campaign. And a wonderful example is Californian Hotel. Rather than, again, switching off the lights, what they did was help deliver to the community messages of hope, literally. So in the building there with the lights says hope. And we saw locally our TV networks sending messages that we're all in this together. And even the big banks came to the party with genuine messages of support and action, and spent millions of dollars promoting that whatever you need, we're here to help. And again, these are messages which help build goodwill and trust. So when we're back to normal, we will be more inclined to choose those businesses. So what I'd like to do is step through what I think are 6 of the most important strategies to survive and thrive through COVID-19 and beyond. The first one is about assessing your current position. So the way you approach brand marketing and business growth strategy at this point depends on your situation and your current business performance. So this little model shows that you either have a weak financial position and a weak market position, or a strong financial position and a strong market position. So basically, if you are in a strong financial position and you have strong market share, this is your opportunity to double down, go hard, because this is when you grow market share while other businesses are battening down the hatches and reducing and cutting their marketing. Fantastic opportunity for acquisitions and invest in market share and leadership. These 2 quadrants, if you like, if you have a strong market position but not a strong financial position, this is where you need to absolutely focus your offer, focus your message, focus on stripping back costs, and promote heavily that particular narrow focus. Likewise, down in the bottom right corner here, strong financial position, but the market position is weak. This is when you absolutely focus on your core capabilities and drive that market hard. So that's a quick tool to show how to market based on your current situation, your current position in the marketplace. The second strategy, which is really important, is to focus on your core customers, focus on your existing customers, focus on customer retention. So this is a stat by Frederick Reichard from Bain & Company, who was the inventor of the Net Promoter Score. So he discovered that by improving customer retention by only 5% can hit the bottom line and increase your profits by 25 to 95%. That is a huge, huge percentage profit. Now, if you think about it, it costs much less to look after existing customers than it does to attract new ones, and it's faster. They are the low-hanging fruit. So strategy 2 is do everything possible to focus on loyalty, focus on the benefits you're delivering to customers, and drive and grow customer retention. Third strategy is to be absolutely clear and define your competitive advantage. This is a Harvard tool that talks about the essence of competitive advantage, and it comes from being clear about the value that you create, so what you offer that is valued most by a very specific audience, and most importantly is different to what competitors offer. So this is the reason why customers choose you. So being clear about what it is that you offer that your audience values the most and is different to your customer. If you can define that, that is your competitive advantage and becomes the core of your marketing campaign. I think this is probably one of the most important at this time. So this is about being a must-have, or marketing your business as a must-have. And there's a great saying that you're either selling candy, vitamins, or painkillers. So when you're selling candy, it tastes nice, but there's very little long-term benefit. Vitamins, we know that will be good for us sometime in the long run, but we're not going to jump in the car at midnight and drive a million miles and pay a premium for vitamins. But when we wake up with a splitting headache or a migraine, we will drive miles, we will find any store, and we'll pay whatever premium it is for a solution to that headache. So the analogy there is looking at our products and services and saying, okay, which of the bits are kind of nice to have? Which of the bits are kind of good in the very long term, but which solve absolute customer problems right now? And what we need to do then is pivot our business and focus specifically on those pain points, because they're the things that people will pay a significant premium and they will go, to the end of the earth for. A couple of examples. A company based in LA who have, I think it's 200 employees, and what they do is they make tents for major events. So when all events were shut down, they pivoted their business immediately and they started building triage tents. Subway, again, they said, right, what people need is grocery deliveries, and so again they pivoted their business to focus specifically on that urgent need. I love this one again. When hotels were shutting down, this very clever hotel in Amsterdam said, you know what the burning need is? And this probably came from sitting there with kids being homeschooled, partner on business calls and trying to be on business calls as well. I think as we've all experienced, the need for private quiet time to work was absolutely a burning need. So they said, right, we're going to focus our offer and our marketing on your office away from home, fully equipped to work efficiently while you enjoy some much needed quiet time and focus. So again, not cost conscious there. So Mecca, when their stores shut down, they realized that there's still a customer base who requires help with their skincare. And so what they did was pivot and develop their whole business as online live stream, and huge success. And I spoke with someone last week who said they have experienced record sales since the lockdown. Another example is a local company. It's a fantastic success story. So ISO King from a business that pivoted from creating, oh, I just got what they're creating. So large business that pivoted to creating desks for ISO. So they realized there was an absolute surge in at-home schooling, flipped at home. So they pivoted their business literally in 24 hours. So they had the idea on Monday morning, they were prototyping and digital printing in the afternoon, and they set up an online part of their website that night, and then the following morning they were absolutely live. They extended their range. What they did extremely well is they used every single marketing channel available to reach their audience. So they pushed PR really hard. They got on Better Homes and Gardens. Somehow, I don't know how, they got ScoMo to join and talk about their experience and how they pivoted their business. They promoted PR through advertorial, through online magazines. And as we heard a little bit earlier about the importance of being a good global citizen, they pushed pretty hard the messaging around their environmental credentials. So exceptionally good case study. Sorry, they were a business that made sets and staging. So hundreds of employees, business ground to a halt, and that's how they pivoted their business to desks. The sixth is really important, and that is in times like these to lead with purpose. So research piece from Harvard, purpose-driven companies make more money, have more engaged employees and more loyal customers, and are even better at innovation and transformational change. So at this time, to lead with purpose rather than trying to sell products is really important. So Patagonia is a fantastic business whose marketing and branding is based purely on not trying to sell products and discounts. It's about purpose. So build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. And again, they attract a very loyal customer base. And Patagonia is a fantastic example. So again, rather than trying to compete in selling product, either better, cheaper, or last longer, they focus specifically on what's really important to their audience, and they developed a whole lot of content around films called Damnation. And one of the best examples, I think, is Dove. Again, rather than trying to sell their product as smells nicer, lasts longer, or get into that negative spiral of discounting, they focus on what their customer needs the most, what's happening in their world, what's the social injustice, and how do they help match their needs. So they talk about real beauty, and it's been running for decades now and has been hugely successful and enduring. So I'll leave you, because we're almost out of time before we get into questions, leave you this last quote, which is, when times are good, market; when times are tough, market harder. So this is the opportunity to absolutely double down on marketing. Again, marketing creates awareness, marketing reaches more people. It's marketing that drives sales. It's by stopping marketing is not going to help drive your business. So this is a time to really focus on marketing, effective marketing, and it's a time to really capitalize on growing when other companies are batting down the hatches and holding back and waiting for things to clear. So that's my 30 minutes, updating you on the strategies around marketing in the next, I guess, 6 to 12 months. So what I'd like to do now is see if you have any questions. Is anything that you'd like to find out a little bit more about? I can see I've got a couple in here. So one of them is, in B2B, what would be the one key strategy that you would use? So I think for me, we do a lot of B2B marketing. I think hands down, it's email marketing. So the marketing institutes say that email marketing has a 44-to-1 return on investment. So with every dollar that you spend on email marketing, you're going to get a 44-time return. So I think that would be what I would do first: build a database and focus on email marketing, because you can track it, you can measure it, and you can also, the good news is you can also automate it, which I love, because often while you're sleeping, you're receiving leads and you're responding to leads and you're nurturing those leads to the point of being an opportunity. So when you wake up in the morning, you can convert that opportunity. So I think that's my what I would do from a B2B point of view. I think the other one, which is probably a essential starting point, would be just making sure that you've got your Google SEO down pat. SEO is at the very pointy end of the funnel. So it's when you're going to pick up people who want to buy right then and right now. So when people are searching and they want to buy a product, you need to be at the front of the queue, and by having really strong Google SEO, that will put you hopefully towards the front of the queue. Another question. Okay, so we've got, how should companies go about refreshing their brand in the current pandemic? So I think from a brand identity point of view, you need to be quite strategic about this. We heard about people are gravitating towards trust. So I think it is dialing up those aspects of trust. And I think unless your product or your brand is not aligned with where the market's heading, I think what would be really important is to evolve your brand rather than throwing it out and starting from scratch. So I think that would be the most important thing, is to focus on the things that people value the most and elevate those in the coming 6 to 12 months. So another question, what would be the very first step for a small business? So I think for me, absolute step one is understanding your audience. So defining your audience, understanding what are their absolute hopes and desires, and what are those pain points. I think because if you can be really clear about that, then that helps with your marketing message. It helps with your Google because you can understand what is it they're searching. We know they're shifting online, and what that would do is help us to have those search terms. So when they're searching for solution to that problem, your product and your brand message is aligned and there, and then you can help convert. Okay, so ideally, how often should a company update their brand? It's a great question. As with digital, the world is accelerating. So I've been doing this for 31 years now, and often you would say that a good brand idea would last you 10 years. It's then, I would say, over the last 5 years, that's been compressed to about 5. So I think given the acceleration of change, a 5-year window is about right before you need to refresh. The variable there is if you're in retail, possibly need to look at it more frequently because trends and being on trend changes a lot more in fashion. Other businesses will require a little bit more longevity, but I think the window's about 5 years. I would definitely think, given the massive shifts in the last 6 months, also a big generation shift with a new Gen Z entering the marketplace and becoming enormous in terms of their buying power. I'd be looking at it now and making sure that your brand is right for the next, the next 5 years. So I think now is the time to at least assess and analyse, and then see what needs to change going forward. Okay, I have another one. If your competitor has changed their brand recently, what can I do to combat that? And should I consider a brand change as well? Again, really good question. Every time a competitor changes, it changes the whole center of gravity for the marketplace. So a new player enters the marketplace, you need to look at the context, look at the positioning, and then assess what you need to do to change. So I definitely think if a competitor has updated their brand, then you need to look and say, how does that make our brand compare? So that if a consumer is shopping the category and they look at your brand and they look at the competitor brand, if they think that the competitor brand is now infinitely more attractive, then you definitely need to do something to be able to compete. So I think that's definitely, it's a really good question, and something that you always need to be looking at what's happening in the marketplace and looking at what you need to do to make sure that your brand is competitive and attractive to consumers. I think we've got one more question. Okay, in a world that is evolving and becoming more and more digital, what advice or suggestions would give to a B2B marketer looking to launch a new product in the pandemic? when previously we would have relied on offline activities like events? Yes, very, very good question. So the good news is that there are so many businesses that have started in this environment. Moving digital creates a bit of a level playing field. So when you're developing or launching a new product, you're not competing with established businesses with very deep pockets, with very established retail footprints. Everybody's competing on the same grounds with clicks. So I think what you do is you've got a fantastic opportunity to reach people with social. I think as we saw with the furniture guys, that they were able to push really hard on PR, they were able to push really hard on social, and use all of those channels to really reach the right audience. And again, if your product has been developed specifically to address the headaches and the urgent needs of consumers right now, then your product will be very attractive in this context. Any more questions? Hopefully that answered that question for you. Okay, so if we're no more questions, hopefully I've answered most of your queries and concerns around how to market during these times. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and thank you very much for the insightful questions. I hope that's helped, and I hope that's given you some fantastic strategies in order to take forward. So we'll have this presentation available, so please, by all means, reach out and let us know if we can help in any way. So again, thank you very much, and take care, everyone.